Hi everyone, I'm Gemma,
I'm Matty.
and this is Around the Block, a brand new podcast all about stammering, brought to you by STAMMA, aka the British Stammering Association.
This week we're going to tell you some tales from our school days. We are obviously going to frame it through the lens of stammering, but we both have quite a lot of stories to tell.
I was just going to say, this is literally going to be like the worst one, I feel like, as a person who stammers. There's so many bad stories to tell from the school days of, just general fun stuff.
So I certainly think that is a good sort of disclaimer to make, that there is a bit of like a trigger warning attached onto this, so just a heads up. And we have quite an exciting sort of segment, I guess, that we're actually going to hear from a teacher and a person who stammers, who will provide us with some hints and some tips for teachers about what can be done to make it more individuals who stammer friendly. Before we get into it, I haven't asked you about your new job, Gemma. How is it going?
Yes, it is going extremely well, thank you. I mean, I feel kind of silly listening back to previous episodes and how nervous I was, because I just think, like, it's all, I don't feel anxious now. I mean, I speak on Zoom a lot in our like department chats, because similar to your job, I'm responsible for feeding back what my production are
Okay.
up to. So it's heavily reliant on like me speaking. So there's
Yeah.
there's nowhere to hide, because I'm the only one who knows that information. And I've stammered a few times, and I don't mind. I think my team are really, really lovely. My boss is really nice and understanding. So if I were to tell her, I think she would be understanding, and she would try and make it as comfortable for me as she can. And
Yeah, I'm sure.
that's the difference, I think, as to how maybe I've had experiences in the past with jobs, is that the team and your boss makes the whole of the they make or break the job when it comes to your speech. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think I maybe might mention the podcast actually, in a department chat.
Advertising, yes, come on.
Yeah, but like you've talked about, it's such a great way without it being awkward and being like, so guys, I have a stammer. Like, it's such a great little conversation starter, that's interesting, and a way of me disclosing. So I feel really comfortable. I've talked about like mental health here and there, because the BBC are obviously like pushing that, so, and I'm very like passionate about that. So I feel comfortable to dip a little of the Around the Block podcast in that
Oh, excellent. It's
soup.
good.
So yeah.
And so you haven't disclosed, but you would have thought that people will have sort of heard it and like assumed, do you think?
I think they think I'm just like pausing a lot. Do you know what I mean? Because on Zoom,
Internet's a
like,
little bit
yeah,
shabby.
yeah. Because I think when we meet, I haven't met them face to face yet. So when we meet face to face, that's actually quite interesting. That they probably will clock then, but over Zoom, it's quite difficult for them to understand what's going on. But yeah, I mean, disclosure
Oh, I
might
mean, it sounds
come.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah, I'm very, 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 very pleased.
So what our sort of plan for this is is for us to just to tell each other stories, stammering stories about our educational lives. And we would like to just have a conversation about what we think was positive, what we think was not so positive, and just sort of what lessons we would have liked to have been learned. Gemma, do you have anything that you want to just jump straight in with?
Oh God, loads, literally loads to say. I mean, I feel like what we're gonna say is possibly like along the same lines, but I mean, the thing that stands out to me the most is when I think back to my school days, is the times when you knew it was like the first class of the year, um, or a brand new teacher, and I knew I was going to have to say my name. But in my drama class, it was a get up and speak kind of class. Of course, it's drama. um,
Yeah, of course.
so I knew we would all have to stand in a circle and introduce ourselves to the teacher that was new. So times like that, my anxiety was extremely high. And I remember standing in the circle, and then I knew she was about to say, "Right, we're all going to introduce our ourselves," and literally like that pit appears in my stomach,
Yeah.
and I just, like, my body is telling me, get out, get out, get out. So I just pretended I really need to go to the toilet, and I said to her, I really need to go to the toilet, like I really need to go. And she was like, what, now? Like, can't you wait a bit? And I said, no, 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 I really, really need to go. And I feel like women get away with that, like girls, because that time of the month and stuff, like, you have to
Yeah.
go. um so that's how I got out of that, and I pretty much used that technique throughout my
From
my
now
school
on.
years. just like going to the toilet, needing to wee all the time, just constantly.
And so that worked every single time.
Yeah, pretty much.
There surely is a more engaging way for you to go around the class and for you to get to know people that is just a little bit more creative and it's just a bit more inclusive than just making people
Absolutely.
stand up.
Even people struggling with anxiety, which is such a common thing, that in itself is a really scary thing.
Yeah.
And you're so right, it's not inclusive, it's very restrictive.
We once sort of flipped this round and where the teacher asked us to write our names and write an interesting fact about ourselves on a piece of paper, and then just to stick it to the whiteboard, and she would then pick things out and say, okay, person X, can you come up here and can you tell the class about this fact or about this story or whatever
Oh,
it
that's
was.
so good. That's like
And
a
that made a huge
stammer's
difference.
dream.
Oh my god, right? Because it bypasses that hump of saying your own name. And
Yeah.
speaking as just me, I personally quite like to tell stories.
No,
Obviously,
really?
they go round the houses. I take pleasure in it, and that was by far the best experience that I've had for introducing myself to a whole class. Um,
Mm.
and so I guess what I'm saying is just teachers of the world, just get a bit more inventive, just get a bit more creative, and because no one likes having to stand up, just say their name to then just sit back down again. Everyone hates that. Have you ever had an experience where your stammer has been of a benefit to you during your educational life?
Um. uh,
It's very much fine to say no. Don't
yeah.
worry.
No. 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 I mean, I can literally think of one time in sixth form when I finally got the balls to disclaim that I had a stammer, because oh my god, the times in English, which is one of my stories where I had to read the book uh, uh, aloud. When you take a chapter each. Oh my god, so scary that I think
Just absolutely awful.
by the time I got to sixth form, and it was obviously so stressful, the amount of work and blah blah, I thought, I just don't need this crap. Like, I actually don't need this crap. So I pulled my English literature, my teacher aside, and I said, I have a stammer. Would you mind not picking on me to read? And she totally understood, and she never
Oh,
asked
no
me to
way.
read. Which that was probably the only good experience in my whole childhood up until I was about 21 I can think of.
But I mean, that's what you want to hear, right? Like,
Yeah,
I would want
yeah,
the teacher to be like, "Oh no, it's chill. I just won't pick you." Like, absolutely, it's perfect.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's
Imagine
just
how much worse it could have gone if she was like, no, tough,
yeah.
you're doing it anyway.
Well,
Do
that's
not
like
give a crap.
the time when I told my drama teacher when I disclosed I had a stammer, and she was like, "Well, you still have to do it, you know."
Yeah, just relax about it.
Yeah, but just chill out. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Um,
so unhelpful. Absolutely the wrong way to go about it.
are there times when you've had to read aloud in class? Have you got any things like? Have you had any times like that where teachers have understood or not?
So that brings me onto one of my positive stories. This was, I think, secondary school English. Um, and we obviously did the whole class, like we did the classic that you read a chapter or how just a few lines or however much. I think it was of Mice and Men, and I remember being sat towards the back of the class, probably third row of four, and I like caught her eye, and I just like really subtly just shook my head, and she just shook her head back at me, and
Wait, what? Wait, so
so
you'd
it was
stammered?
no, so we hadn't even begun to speak yet. So yeah, as I say, so I caught her eye and just shook my head slightly, and she just did the same back to me, and we went round, and she stopped the student before me. She was okay. Time up. We're doing, like we've had enough of that. Whatever.
Oh
Um,
my gosh! Wow.
and like that was like absolutely amazing. It's like exactly how I would want a teacher to respond as both an individual who stammers and as a parent of someone who stammers. I mean, that's not who I am, but like I told my parents
Yeah. Do you
about
have?
it. Yeah,
Are
this
you
is
a
not.
father?
No, that was no, it's not clear. But like I told my parents, and they were like really really impressed, and I think that they told her at like the next school meeting, like parents evening, um, because it was subtle in like the way that she just shut it down without it getting to me. She didn't just get to me and then just skip me and continue going,
Yeah.
which I think really, really would have brought attention to it. Like it was
Yeah.
perfect the way to do it, and I I appreciated it so much, like so much,
Mm.
so much that I do not remember her name, but I genuinely will never ever forget that.
Yeah.
And like it's of no cost to her, but it's like yeah, absolutely huge for me, absolutely
Mm.
huge.
And you're so right. It's such a subtle thing for her to have done, and she also took your cue. It's not like she shut you down to say like you have a stammer, you can't read this bit. It was she looked at you and you shook your head. So you told her this is something that I don't want to do. This is not something that I feel comfortable with. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, whoever she is,
Yeah,
Mrs.
props to
Stammer.
you. Yeah, but
Wow.
like even at that point, like I definitely hadn't voluntarily disclosed that I had a stammer. Like the school would have absolutely have known about this, and she would have known. But I mean, yeah, like props to her. So yeah, so that awesome experience. Tell me about a terrible experience, Gemma.
Oh,
Let's just change tack.
let's just make this so depressing. Oh gosh. I mean, our feed off the of mice and men theme.
Yeah, bring it.
And it was in another English class. I mean, English and drama, the freaking worst subject for a stammerer, don't you
Yeah,
think?
I mean that is a bizarre choice.
And we had to go around and read a chapter each. And my teacher was Australian, so I'll do
Say
yeah.
it in the accent.
I will. And then it got to me, and I remember like it was really awkward. The atmosphere went really awkward, and she then came up to me after I finished. Came up to the table I was on, and she said, "Gemma, were you concentrating when you were reading that?" and I said, "Oh, I have a stammer," and she went, "Oh, okay," and then walked away. And then I remember everyone on the table just
What?
staring at me. And I just think, how freaking bizarre. Like, were you concentrating? No, I was just like casually, looking over the words, but I wasn't concentrating. I mean, it just made me think. I mean, I already thought it before then. I already thought, God, there's something like really wrong with me. And I felt like such a deep sense of shame, and I also felt picked on as well, like singled out.
Yeah.
And especially like if she actually wanted to know if there was something, I mean, I don't want to say wrong because it's not anything wrong with me, but she could have pulled me aside after class. She didn't need to do it with
Yeah, like in
everyone else
front of
there.
people.
I mean, and also use like common sense. Sorry, but like even if I didn't have a stammer, like who doesn't concentrate when they're reading? Like what does that even mean? So
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm not trying to like, full on assassinate this woman, but like I just think let's just think before we speak to kids, because I mean what I was like 12 or 13 at that time. Like it's
Yeah,
such a hard age as
yeah,
it is.
definitely.
So I mean
What would you have preferred her to have done?
I think just like pull me aside after class and say, you know, is there anything we can do to like support you? If you don't want to read, just let me know. If you do want to read, then please do. And if you need some extra time, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah,
Just common sense stuff. I really hope that teachers nowadays have a better understanding of like adversity, because I still think that although that me and you were quite young, you know a lot has changed in the time that we've left school, like with mental health, gender roles, race. Like we've become so much more aware of the struggles that everyone that different people experience.
mm.
um so yeah.
I think that the very sort of key thing is that teachers and schools and institutions, that what I wish that they'd been able to offer when I was in education, and I would like to think that they do so more now, is they obviously need to have just an element of support for people who stammer and just for people who have other challenges
Mm.
in their lives, but just the ability to be a little bit more flex, like that, I know would have made a huge difference to me, and just the
Mm.
ability just to bend the rules slightly, just so that it can adapt to certain people, would
Yeah.
would have been huge to me.
Mm.
There was one time that I went to the teacher and I disclosed to him that I had a stammer, and could I just give the presentation to him as opposed to the whole class? Like, like that feels like a fairly reasonable request, right? No, no, no. He was not having that at all.
Wait, what? He
Um,
said no?
yeah, yeah, he was like, no, like,
What?
well, he said that it needs to be in front of the whole class, and I can't make
What?
exceptions for just one person because then other people will also want to do this.
Are you
Um,
kidding me? It
did
makes
not do very well in
there's
that.
there's no difference, is there? Giving a
No, I know.
presentation to your teacher or the class. I cannot believe that he said that. You were willing to like give up your own time, and it would take what 5 minutes out of his day. And what do you mean? Like I have to make exceptions for everyone? Or what, does everyone have a stammer in the class then? If people, if students in your class have any disabilities or adversities, or you should freaking help them. I mean, gosh, that's literally made me so angry.
Yeah, I can hear it. So yeah,
I just can't believe
wasn't
that.
great, to be honest.
It's freaking ridiculous. The education system is meant to help you. Like in this situation, it's an example of how it can be such a a a, a hindrance to anyone who doesn't fit the perfect mold, of a able person.
Exactly. It's just that sense that they need to be more flexible.
Yeah.
So, do you have any other stories that you particularly want to tell us today?
Yeah, I have a really uplifting story.
Oh,
Joke,
excellent. Oh,
joking. It's literally the most depressing story you'll ever hear. Are you ready for it?
wait.
Okay, cool. Well, I feel like I should put a trigger warning on this story because it really is quite deep. I mean, we can edit it out if it's too much, but I mean, I feel like the context of what I want to say is important. So, I mean, I was in sixth form at the time. I was studying drama, and I was sexually assaulted in a park next to my school. So it was quite it was known amongst the teachers what had happened, and amongst everyone knew what had happened to to me. And a week after, I'm in class, I'm back at school. I mean, don't ask me why I'm in school, but I am. And my teacher, my drama teacher, comes up to me during class and says, "Can you come and see me during my lunch break?" And I instantly thought, "Oh gosh, like this is amazing. A teacher is actually going to ask me how I am," because obviously, as you can imagine, I wasn't doing very well. um, so I go and find her during my lunch break, and I come in and I sit down, and I think, great, I'm going to be allowed some time off. And she sat me down and said, "Gemma, I noticed that you have a, s- a, s- a s- I noticed that you had a stammer, and as a person with a lisp, which she did have, she said, I'm just letting you know from my own experiences trying to make it in the acting industry, you definitely won't if you have a stammer. So it's something that you definitely want to look into getting fixed." Um,
It's just an absolutely bizarre thing to come in and to say to a student.
Absolutely. Like, I
Horrendous.
think regardless of what just happened in my own life, it's like it felt like two bombshells, like two things I was really deeply ashamed about, and two things I really like struggled throughout my teenage years to talk about or come to terms with. She had like thrown a double bomb at me, where I was like, I thought this person was taking the time out to ask me how I am. But instead of doing that, she just literally like pulled the rug, from bin beneath me and crushed my dreams in a way. Like, the only thing I had to hold on to at that point was drama and my love for performing. So when she said that, um I mean, so that's like a very, very dark one.
I mean, that's genuinely awful.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And as a teacher who has a lisp as well, you would think like she understood like what it was like, and that it's not something that you can fix as well, and maybe it's like the world should change rather than me. And can I just say, there's plenty of actors who have stammers, so that experience still sticks with me out of anything in my childhood. Um and because I think, gosh, like children t- 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 children today, are they going through that? Are they being told that? Are they being told that they can't achieve their dreams because there's something wrong with them, because they have a, a, a stammer? So I mean, yeah, it's yeah, it's bleak.
And it's such like a fundamental like undermining of what a teacher's role is supposed to be. Like a
Absolutely.
teacher is meant to develop it. They are meant to give people the tools to grow in life and to improve themselves and to aim high. Like, teachers are meant to inspire ambition in people.
Absolutely. Like,
it's just the opposite of that entirely.
It's like they're meant to encourage you to chase your dreams, literally not tell you like you can't do this. Like, it's horrendous. I mean, I hope that like she's changed her teaching style.
I mean, after all that you went through as well beforehand.
Absolutely. Like, ask them what they need. Don't like tell them that they can't have the things that they need. Like, at that time I begged for time off school,
Really?
which they didn't allow me to take. It's just during my sixth form. It was a very dark time. I feel like it's a whole other like episode.
Yeah,
so I feel like I feel like you should cheer me up now. So anyway, I think it's time to move on to our next segment.
Yeah, shall we hear from our guest?
Okay, what we're about to hear is from Abed Ahmed. 2 A's, not easy to say. He's a maths teacher with a stammer who supports children who stammer as well, and he's a former trustee of STAMMA, and he's just kindly recorded some tips for us and his experience of working with children who stammer, and perhaps how teachers can support students who stammer, and also what to look out for.
So I'm a secondary school maths teacher. I teach in a school in inner city Birmingham. So what I wanted to talk about was things that teachers can do to make school a much safer environment for children who stammer. So just a few general pieces of advice that I would give to teachers and also people that are not teachers is when you do speak to a child who stammers, please don't interrupt or finish their sentences, which means that just let them say what they need to say, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. I think sometimes it's quite easy to finish someone's sentence for them. Don't try and advise a child who stammers on how to speak fluently, or you might want to consider giving them some prompts and advice if they're very young, like 4 or 5 years old, because they do need slightly a bit more guidance. But the like older the children get, I'd strongly recommend that you don't advise them, because more chances are that they probably do know what they need to do. Of course, don't make comments or jokes about stammering. Don't make it really like obvious that you might be treating a child who stammers differently. Of course, you will need to make some reasonable adjustments for them, but just don't make it really like obvious in front of their friends. Don't be too like alarmed if when they're talking to you, you're finding that they're not looking at you, because for people who stammer, it can be really like awkward to look at someone directly in the eye while we're talking. Do try and encourage them as much as possible, privately and publicly as well, because you don't want a child to just not take part at all, just because of the stammer. So do try and encourage them. But if they tell you that they don't want to do it, then I would respect that. Try and praise them as much as possible when they do something well. And finally, please just give them time to speak. Moving on to reasonable adjustments that teachers can make for children who stammer. Speak to your student beforehand to try and find out what they are comfortable with, and you'll probably realize that a majority of them are fine to do with other things that you do like in the lesson, but just double check with them. Please give them at least 20 to 30 seconds of thinking time before you cold call them. So don't just pick students out totally without many sort of warning. So please do give them a bit of time to think about it. Don't measure success by expecting quick responses. I think that's something as teachers we do that in especially in my subject, maths. We tend to think that if they don't know the answers very quickly, that means that they don't know what they're talking about, and we know that's not true. If you teach a language subject, please give them at least 25% extra time during presentations and speaking exams. Try and avoid high pressure speaking situations, like for example, on the first day of the school year, a lot of teachers love doing tasks where you get the kid to come to the front, say their name, and talk about themselves. If you think about it, adults don't even like that. But a lot of teachers then say, but we need to teach them how to be confident. That is true, but I guarantee you that a majority of the kids in the entire UK, they probably still leave school not being very confident public speakers. So you just not doing that, it's not going to make the world of difference. Instead, what you can do is give post-it notes, and that would make life so much more easier. When you're circulating in the classroom, try and go to that student a bit more, because they might be afraid to put up their hands if they're stuck. Please use mini whiteboards for checking for lack understanding, not with just children who stammer, but do it for your entire class. I'm not a big fan of getting kids to put up their hands, because if you think about it, that's a competition to see who's the most smartest and the most confident. There's so many kids in there that probably do know the answer, but they don't want to put up their hands. So use your mini whiteboards. And finally, if a student is struggling to say yes sir or yes miss during the register, please give them an opportunity to say something different. And the last thing that I did want to talk about is some advice for children. If there's days where you're really struggling with the speech, tell your teacher, and I'm pretty sure they will understand, but that's not an excuse to not do your work. So please do your work at the same time, but just tell your teacher that you don't want to speak too much. If you don't like reading out loud in front of the class, which is totally normal, tell your teacher, is it okay if you can do it in smaller groups? And I think that would be a lot more easier, because I strongly don't advise that you just avoid everything, because in that way you're not going to become a bit more confident in yourself. If a child says something very mean to you about your stammer, please do tell your teacher straight away. Your schools definitely take bullying very seriously, and as long as you're very open about your stammer to your teachers and to your friends, everything should be okay.
I mean, wow. I wish I had him as a teacher.
Yeah, he sounds absolutely awesome.
Changed my whole childhood.
Yeah, I mean,
wow. He said so many good things there, and he got a really good line between making reasonable adjustments but still encouraging the child. So it's not pushing the child to say, come on, everyone should be able to get up and present in front of the class. It's gradual encouragement, and hopefully you can nurture that child into feeling comfortable enough to be able to do that. I mean, and starting off in small groups, that's a great idea. That's a really great way to still gain some experience in speaking aloud as a person with a stammer, and then build up to perhaps larger groups. I think that was an amazing tip.
Definitely. I think that he went to such great lengths to stress that it is about being flexible as well as not singling out a child, not making somebody feel even more self-conscious, even more aware of it than they would, but also being able to adapt to challenges that they're facing. I mean, just sounds perfect to me. The idea to use small whiteboards, almost instead of hands up speaking or however, is perfect, because it involves all the children as opposed to just a child who has a stammer, and it's simply just far more fun. huge, and it's that perfect fine line between being enormously helpful for people that, you know, for children that need it, but subtle enough that they aren't singled out, and engages the full class. Just like it feels like more of a sort of event.
It's such
Awesome.
it's such a more inclusive way, isn't it? Because whilst you said that now, I just thought, what about if there's students with hearing disabilities or any other kind of speech impediments, but, you know, kids that might be hard of hearing or deaf, but, you know, like that's such a good way around that, because we're not just trying to say make adjustments for people who stammer. What we're trying to say is make it inclusive for everyone, because we don't help, you know, we kind of need to fight for everyone, in, you know, to change this rigid system that we have. But I mean, and then it made me think of your experience with your teacher when you were when she asked everyone to go around the room and speak, and then
same here.
she, you know, it made me think of how subtle, because she didn't single you out in front of everyone. It was such a subtle thing.
She nailed it, didn't she?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
got
because I think that's a big thing, isn't it, with someone who might have adversity or disabilities. You don't want to single them out and make them feel different in class, and I think that also wouldn't have helped. Do you know what I mean? If we were singled out and been told, you don't have to do that, you can do this, I think that has another set of cons.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think he got the there's a fine line, and I think he got that right between singling a child out and supporting them.
Yeah, and that there are things that we talked about which to us seem like very much sort of common sense, and I also think are more applicable outside of purely just the school setting. Things like, obviously, just don't interrupt a person who is mid-block. You know, really don't, like, you know, like you talked about, really trying to not advise students on how to speak fluently, and like that to me just sounds like the worst possible thing, and just a really odd thing for someone to do, because I mean, how would someone else know? But it's important that we teach people the simple lessons such as this, and the more subtler touch lessons about how to make adaptations, but not to single people out. However,
it made me think about how he spoke about not commenting on how children could speak more fluently. If a child manages to speak more fluently one day, so reads a chapter aloud and doesn't stammer, that also shouldn't be praised. It shouldn't be like, oh, you spoke so well, you know, because I feel like when I delivered like a drama piece and I didn't stammer, it was like, oh, great, you know, you didn't you spoke more fluently there. So it's not giving a judgment on how fluent you are each day. So, which I think we as stammerers do all the time. So yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that was amazing though. I mean, that was really great of him to record those things, and it's so nice. It's so comforting to hear that there's a teacher out there who has a stammer. I'm sure there's loads, but one that's so active and supporting kids, not just kids who stammer. You know, it makes me happy that there are nice teachers out there.
Nice teachers out there.
Well, I hope everyone's enjoyed this episode. I hope it's not been too depressing, and we've ended on a good note, on a positive note, on a promising note for the future, and hopefully things will change. So yeah. Don't forget, you can go to our website, stammer.org, or our Twitter page @stammer, or on Instagram with @stammer. UK, and there's a Facebook page too. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. We will speak to you next
Bye.
week. Bye-bye.